Jay, welcome to London.
Oh, thank you.
You are one of the world's authorities on partnership and channel. How do you understand partnerships? How do you understand channel?
Yeah, there's a lot more partnerships than people think. So 75% of all world trade goes indirectly. So you look at the $80 trillion GDP of the world,
Right.
and 60 of it goes indirectly. So if you think in your personal life, the last car you bought was from a dealer. That's a channel. If you look at the last TV you bought, is from a retailer. If you look at the last jar of peanut butter you bought, was from a grocer. You actually have to think in your personal life and your professional life, the last time you actually bought something direct. It's actually tough to do. So the world revolves this way. So partnerships are everything in every industry. Goes through some indirect supply chain.
Right.
And we tend to talk about technology partnerships a lot, but it covers every part of our life.
Right. And then people really well understand like bronze and silver partners. How it looks like these days?
Well, the biggest change, and there's a number of changes that are happening, and most of them happening just in the last couple of years.
Right.
We've had a very stable channel in most industries for decades. If we talk about technology industry, for 37 years, there's been a very stable reselling channel.
Right.
They call themselves VARs, resellers, managed service providers. Vendors would set up a gold, silver, bronze and try to accelerate. Mm-hmm. And then over time, you created this huge list of long tail partners that didn't really fit in the gold, silver,
Right.
bronze. And then every year, and I was part of these conversations, do we get rid of them? What do we do with these people? They're just not transacting. Mm-hmm. They're just bad partners.
Right.
And what we're learning now is, they're just not maybe bad partners, but you didn't have them in the right kind of program. Mm. And so we've gone from this linear transactional model, which means every one of your resellers focuses on the transaction.
Right.
The customer has changed, the customer journey has changed, the actual vendor selection and transaction has changed. So the majority of partners today coming into the ecosystem
Right.
are non-transacting partners.
Right.
So it's not as focused on this transaction. And when you're a non-transacting partner, there is no gold, silver, bronze.
Mm-hmm.
So you're more interested in other things about your partner. What kind of buyers do they work with? What kind of sub-industries do they focus on? Where, geographically, where are they located? What sector, segment, and size of customer do
Mm-hmm.
they really benefit from? And then, there's 40 layers of the tech stack today.
Right.
So there's no partner that does everything. So if you look at those 5 vectors, this becomes a new ecosystem play. And I called this a couple of years ago shadow channels.
Yeah.
And people got mad because they didn't like the word shadow. But it wasn't because it's dark and in the back alley. It was because 10 years ago, shadow IT kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
This is when line of business executives would start making cloud decisions without
Right.
the IT department
Right.
knowing. Back then, it made up a few percent of tech, buying. And every CIO magazine you would buy said, we need to stamp this out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that small amount of buying has now become 65% of all tech buying.
Right.
2/3 of every tech
Wow.
dollar spent today is in these new line of business. So if you run marketing or sales or operations or finance or HR,
Mm-hmm.
you're one of these new buyers. And that 65% will probably be 80% in a few years. So if you're one of these new buyers, you buy very, very differently. And when we talk about the traditional reselling channel, they're struggling getting into the room to go get
Right.
these new dollars.
Right.
And the new shadow channel are a bunch of new types of companies that service this new buyer and offer them a number of services and other things that
Mm-hmm.
really drive home the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, just in the last couple of years, we've seen a flood of these shadow channels. But they're not in the shadows anymore.
Right.
They're coming out, and we're starting to see huge things happen in the industry. A company like Salesforce, biggest CRM
Mm-hmm.
company, announced that they need 250,000 new partners
Wow.
in the next 4 years to double the size of their company.
Right.
On the same day they said that, they shut down their resale program.
That's
100% of these 250,000 partners are going to be non-transacting partners. They're going to be in the ecosystem.
Right.
Microsoft, the biggest channel in the world, they have 400,000 reselling partners today.
Mm-hmm.
But they're recruiting 7,500 new ones a month.
Right.
And I don't even know how to onboard that many new partners. But 80% of those new partners are non-transacting.
Mm-hmm.
So in Microsoft's world, they're going into this new ecosystem.
So what do they do then? Like if they don't transact, what do they help promote the company, serves their customers?
Well, there's a number of things. If you break up the new customer's buying journey,
Right.
they spend 68% of their time at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
without wanting to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
The last time you bought a car, You go online, you do all the research, you look at pictures and videos, you talk to friends, you go to social network, you do all the things you do. Go configure the car and price it, and you're an expert by the time you're done your 68%.
Right.
When you go to the dealer, everything breaks. And you sit there for hours and hours while they get you a deal.
Right.
This is what's happening in software. This is what's happening in hardware. This is what's happening now to the buying journey.
Right.
I've spent my 68%. I've maybe leveraged 5 different partners along that way, digitally.
Right.
I've read their ebooks, I've read their white papers, I've maybe spoken to them in a peer network, I've gone into community groups, I've been on a LinkedIn group. I mean, there's hundreds of ways that you would interact. But on average, I'm going to work with 5 partners who influence me through that part of the journey. What's interesting is of those group of people, 61% of them actually make the decision without ever talking to somebody.
Right.
So you've got major corporations right now, which I talk to every day, who are focused on that first 68%, getting obsessed over it, because if they're not in that room, if they're not influencing during that time, they may lose the deal without even knowing there was a deal.
Right.
This is the change. So you have partners very early in the journey that are influencers. You get to vendor selection. The transaction itself is changing. 73% of these new buyers would actually prefer to buy direct.
Right.
So this is the new world. This is why so many non-transacting partners are there, because we at Forrester are predicting 17% of all world B2B decisions and money will flow through marketplaces, e-commerce, and web direct in 4 years.
Right.
That's $1 trillion shift of money. It's not just technology, but it's paper clips and forklifts in every B2B transaction. So it's less about the transaction, but every company in every industry is becoming a tech company.
That's a very compelling argument.
Every service company in every industry is becoming a tech services company.
Right.
Becoming a shadow channel. And every buyer, like I talked about these line of business buyers, you might run marketing. The marketing exec now spends more on tech than the CIO.
Right.
And they spend now 51% of their time on tech. Everyone is flooding into the technology industry. Millions and millions and millions of people. So what we call the linear transaction channel that we've had for 37 years is now an ecosystem. Right. It is millions of stars and moons. It's very celestial in terms of trying to figure out this entire ecosystem. And that's what the biggest change has happened just recently.
Right. So you mentioned marketplaces. How do you, and you previously mentioned that partnership is evolving into ecosystem. What is the characteristic of this ecosystem? How do you see companies like manage this ecosystem, build this ecosystem? Yeah,
so there's a couple of thoughts there. One is we're going to have some major ecosystems. Really the core of the ecosystem, the center, the sun or the center planet of the ecosystem is the marketplace.
Right.
So we're seeing some major companies. I mentioned Salesforce earlier. Yeah. Salesforce is investing in their app exchange, which is their marketplace. But it's not just a place where you can buy software.
Right.
The average Salesforce customer is going to add 6 other pieces of software on top of the Salesforce code itself. So they want to make that available in the marketplace. They also want to make money and tax those other pieces of software. But they've also invested recently on adding all of their partners, the consulting partners and the DevOps people and all the different types of partners they have, which are probably about 12 different types of partners, into that app exchange.
Right.
And they're looking to build hardware. I mean, it's going to be a place as a potential head of sales or head of marketing or head of customer success. You're going to go to this app exchange, and it's going to provide everything for you. You're not only going to buy the software, the core software, which is it's Salesforce in this example, but when you look at the other pieces of software and look at the services, there's $4.14 of opportunity for every dollar that you're going to spend in Salesforce. Salesforce wants to produce that opportunity to you and funnel it through that one place where it makes it easier for the customer. And it makes it very specific for the customer as well in terms of how to put together the right solution.
Right. And this is perfectly explains the evaluation as well.